On today's Technobabble, registering a domain name, all you know, a report from the Gurus of Tech conference, oh, and one more thing.
This is Tech No Babble, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Well, welcome everyone back to the TrinityDigitalMedia.com studios. I just am so glad that you're here. I was thinking about recording an episode at 20,000 feet. In fact, I have a little something. Maybe I'll stick it on the end. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Just to show a little of what you can do on the go. But I decided instead to record this back here instead and release a little bit late because I was at the Gurus of Tech conference. Now, the Gurus of Tech conference, as I understood it, started out with the Church Tech Talk podcast and just grew from there. This one was actually located in Chicago, Illinois at the McHenry campus of Willow Creek Community Church, which you're all probably at least familiar with in passing. Great church. My church wouldn't exist if it weren't for Willow Creek. So I'm indebted to them for that. So the Gurus of Tech conference, 3-day conference, I flew out this time last week. I'm recording on Monday. And just had a wonderful time interacting with church tech people from all over the country. There were probably about 500 people there, if I had to guess. I didn't hear any official numbers, but there was plenty of worship, and I just had fun in the track that I got to be a part of, which was the post-production kind of track, because at heart I'm a video editor. So I learned a lot about planning and scheduling in the first in the first session, rather. Got a bunch of forms, because I'm very artistic, so forms and processes just are not my forte. I met Brad Zimmerman from churchmediadesign.tv, and that was pretty cool. Got to spend some time learning a little bit about the why and how of graphic design, and that was great. One of the highlights, though, was a main session. I didn't go to this guy's breakout, but Robert Scoble, not to be confused with Robert Scoble. One has a V as in Victor, one has a B as in boy. The guy with the V as in Victor is a well-known audio engineer, and he just he really said a lot of great stuff. Probably the biggest one was that your technology isn't the main thing. The people behind it are the main thing. That if you take two audio engineers, because audio is his thing, two audio engineers, and give one of them is so-so, but he gets great equipment. The other is really great, but he gets so-so equipment. He said he would bet 100% of the time on the guy with the so-so equipment that himself knows a lot. And that really opened something up for me, because, I'm here doing this on a shoestring, almost literally, and just thinking, okay, so new equipment would solve some problems, but it's actually the person behind what you're doing that makes it happen. the equipment itself can't do anything without someone to set it up, plug it in, and make it work. And if that person doesn't know what they're doing, it can actually cause problems. It would actually be worse than if it hadn't been. So, all in all, a great conference. And I hope to go to the Gurus of Tech conference in Louisville, which is remarkably closer to where I live, in July 11th through 14th, I believe. And so, if you're there, I hope to see you there. Up next, all you know. But first, registering a domain. Right after this.
This is Joel Osborne of Milton, Wisconsin, and you're listening to Tech No Babble.
Well, welcome back. One thing that a lot of people get confused about is registering a domain. I was passing out some of my business cards to one of my wife's cousins, and I said, well, yeah, I registered this domain name several years ago. He said, register? You can just email that to yourself. He was confused. He was talking about copyright, which he wasn't exactly accurate. But anyway, all that to say, domain names, there is a central repository where domain names are registered. And in order to get your name into that registration pool, you have to use a service. Now, in the past, I've used GoDaddy, but I've always felt a little bad about that, given their means of advertising. I'm not against beautiful women. I just feel that they're using these people as a marketing gimmick instead of, saying what the company's all about. In fact, a lot of people aren't really clear. So I found another company that's about the same price called Namecheap.com. Now, keep in mind that none of this is paid for. I'd be happy to take sponsoring from Namecheap, but I'm not doing that right now. So Namecheap is who I use for all my domains, and they're inexpensive. They have a lot fewer add-ons, and hey, buy this, buy that, buy the other thing, and I just feel better about their advertising. So that's what I use when I'm registering a domain. Basically, it's pretty simple. You go to the website, sign up for an account, give them your credit card, debit card, PayPal account, whatever you want to pay for it with. .com domains are about $10 a year, so very inexpensive. Others cost different amounts. .tv names, for example, are in the $20 to $30 range. I don't currently own any of those. All mine are either .com or .org. So it just depends on what you want and what's taken and everything. You search for your domain, then you buy it, and then they have tutorials on how to point it to where you want it to be. You can basically point it to a domain that's already existing and cover up the existing domain name with this. That's one way of doing it. Another way is you can use the name servers, which is the preferred method of doing it. There's several different things that you can tweak. You can change your MX records, and that's very helpful if you get Gmail for your domain, or Google Apps, as it's called. That's what I use. Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com, Paul at technobabbleshow.com, and a couple others all run through that. And that enables me to get my email through Gmail, which has great filtering and a great online service, and just do the email, the domain name through another service. So up next, all you know, followed by something else, right after this.
Music for Techno Babble is generously provided by Firefly. Visit their website, fireflyrock.com.
So I mentioned that I went to the Gurus of Tech conference last week, this time last week as I'm recording this. And it's very easy, in light of all the people around you that seem to know everything, to think, well, I really don't know anything. But when you think about it, that's not true at all. We all have different levels of experience, and all the people that I interacted with at that conference were experts in their particular niche. So I was in one of the planning sessions, and he was talking about, forms and ideas on how to save time and just everything you need to think about. And I thought, I don't know anything. But that's his specialty. That's all he does. So he probably isn't as good at podcasting as I am. He probably isn't as good at video production as I am. He's got his own specialty. Not that I'm great at everything, just we all have our specialties. So this is just an encouragement to remember, okay, where is my specialty and what am I good at? One of my things that I picked up at the Gurus of Tech conference, and this was just in talking to someone, so I realized that I'm kind of a tech general contractor. I know a good amount about a vast amount of things, but I'm not an expert in all of them. I just know something about them. And that's very helpful as a church tech consultant, which is what I do, to be able to point churches in the correct direction they should go. Now, I don't need to know everything about everything, but having a basic familiarity with everything and having contacts that know where to go is very important. So that's one of the advantages of having my area of expertise. There are some of you that are watching that are audio guys and lighting gals, and you think, well, I know this, but everyone knows that. That's not true. Everyone doesn't know what you know. Remember that you're uniquely gifted to do what you can do. So you might not be the best at everything in a specific area, but if you're an audio person, you likely know more about audio than I do. If you're a lighting person, you likely know more about lighting than I do. Now, I know something about audio and lighting because I'm a video guy, but that I don't know everything about those. So this is just an idea to bring up something in your head and think, oh, well, maybe I do know something. I know that sometimes I struggle with a little bit of insecurity, thinking, well, I just don't know anything. I know this guy that knows audio like the back of his hand. I know this guy that knows lighting like the back of his hand. I know this guy that's a web designer and he can just think in CSS and PHP, and I can do all that, but that's not the case at all. I'm a tech general contractor. That's kind of what I do. So just keep that in mind next time you're thinking, well, I don't know. You don't, and that's okay. We don't have to know everything. But in this age, it's not difficult to learn quite a lot. Up next, one more thing, right after this.
This is Phil Graves calling from our nation's capital, and you're listening to Tech No Babble.
So in the beginning of November, I noticed that there was a challenge on. If you've been reading my blog, you know what I'm talking about. It's the Write Nonfiction in November challenge. There's also a National Novel Writing Month challenge in November, as well as Write a Poem a Day and a couple other things. Well, I went with nonfiction. I was just curious, could I write a book? Well, in the mail today, this came. And I guess the answer is, I can. This is Podcasting Church. This is my first attempt at writing a book. I can see that this is the proof. So it has a little bit of work. I've got a couple of things to change. But once I do that, then this will be available, and I think I'll also start a Podcasting Church audiobook podcast. So stay tuned for that. I hope to be able to peruse this and see just how close it is to what I have in mind. But that just goes to prove that if you do a little bit of something every day, you can accomplish something. I wrote this in about 40 days. It took me another month to edit it, a couple of weeks to work on the cover. So, I don't know, started November 2nd or 3rd, I can't remember exactly. And here it is, March 7th, and I have a copy in my hand. That's really impressive to me. I've never written a book before, and this might not be the greatest thing in the world, but if anyone's interested, trinitydigitalmedia.com/podcastingchurch. So, until next week, do whatever you're called to do. Do a little bit of it every day, and somehow you might look back at your life someday and realize you've gone out and changed eternity.